New information today in the months-long investigation into former Sun Prairie West Dean of Students Robert Gilkey-Messiger. The Sun Prairie Area School District released documents this afternoon saying in response to multiple public records requests, they're releasing the personnel records for Gilkey-Messiger, noting the investigation of his employment is complete and his employment with the district has been terminated. The documents released also note topics investigated were the relationship between him and a student at Sun Prairie West High School, including driving the student to Dunkin' Donuts and using texts or other social media to communicate with students. Investigations also included whether Gilkey-Messiger discussed clothing or advised what clothing students should wear. He was also told to stop communicating with students through social media, which he agreed to, but then did not stop. Now, these documents also reveal that the first anonymous tip was submitted back on April 3rd, followed by communication between Gilkey-Messiger and Principal Jen Pluger, detailing a conversation between the two of them where the principal clarified with Gilkey-Messiger that he would be placed on paid administrative leave due to an investigation into accusations of an inappropriate relationship with a student. Then on April 7th, Gilkey-Messiger was told the district found no evidence or concern regarding an inappropriate relationship. He then returned to work at Sun Prairie West soon after. Now, fast forward to June 2nd. Gilkey-Messiger was placed on district-directed leave, then was told he was being fired. In these documents, we also learned that Gilkey-Messiger's last paycheck from the district was on June 27th.